Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about Alzheimer's disease, what we can do to prevent it, and what we can do if we couldn't, is Caren Redlich. Caren is a licensed clinical social worker located in Rockland County, New York. Currently, she is in private practice and also has developed a senior care business called Senior Direct LLC. In addition to psychotherapy, services offered to seniors and their adult children include home care aide referrals, placement and maintenance, and Alzheimer's care consultations and recommendations for improving quality of life. Caren also teaches classes on fall prevention, avoiding depression, and preventing cognitive decline. The classes are taught at assisted living facilities, senior clubhouses, and other senior residences. How are you doing today, Caren?
Great, thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Doing very well. I'm looking forward to our conversation, but before we get started, for those that are joining us for the live webinar, if you have any questions, I encourage you to type your questions into the chat box on the right-hand side, and time permitting, we will do everything in our power to get your questions answered. So Caren, I'd like to get started with an understanding of what is Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's disease is a form of dementia that has 3 stages. Once a person is diagnosed with it, they could live over 20 years with it. It is a terminal illness, but like I said, the person can live a very long time with it. And it's a disease where cognition slowly deteriorates and people lose their memory and ability to, function normally.
Are there stages to Alzheimer's?
Yes, there's 3 stages. It's mild, moderate, and severe. In the mild stage is where people can function normally, but they do have memory issues that's more severe than a regular aging person that having memory loss issues. The moderate stage involves needing help getting dressed a little bit more than usual, and memory issues that get worse, and you get lost, and you kind of need more supervision in that moderate stage. And in the severe stage, people lose their ability to speak coherently, and they need much more help getting dressed, and their memory is severely impaired.
Can we do anything to prevent cognitive decline?
There's a lot we can do to prevent cognitive decline. One of the things is the diet that you eat affects your body and your brain. The Mediterranean diet is recommended because it's brain protective. It involves lean meats, lean poultry, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and olive oil. And that is a lot of fish, salmon, and other fatty fish. And a salad a day has been found to protect your brain, and that's what's recommended. That's one thing, that's diet. And then exercise is crucial, because if you think circulation, then you have the whole key to keeping yourself healthy. Because if you're in a sedentary lifestyle, then your body, your blood is not circulating the way it needs to. And when you exercise, the heart pumps the blood to the brain, then bringing the nutrients and the oxygen to the brain, which keeps the brain healthy. Besides diet and exercise, socialization is really, really crucial. What happened during COVID was a lot of dementia developed in people because they were isolated for 2 years. So anybody that had the beginning of dementia had full-blown dementia after COVID, and anyone that didn't have it before, some people did develop it because they were isolated. The seniors I'm talking about.
Right. You mentioned the word dementia. Can you clarify dementia versus Alzheimer's?
Sure. Dementia is the umbrella word for all the dementias. There are various types of dementias. There's vascular dementia, there's frontotemporal dementia, and there's Lewy body dementia, and there's all different types of dementias. Alzheimer's is different because it's terminal. It is something that will eventually, have an ending to a
Yeah.
person.
So you mentioned the Mediterranean diet. Now you've been in this industry and you've been working with individuals and their families on Alzheimer's care consultations and improving the quality of life. How has you mentioned diet and exercise, how has the recommendations or how have the recommendations changed from the time when you first started working with individuals and their families with Alzheimer's to today?
Well, what happened was, the Mediterranean diet is for prevention. But then once there's a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, then people are switching to the keto diet. It has been found through research that keto improves cognition. So people that have dementia or Alzheimer's, they are switching to keto. Exercise is always helpful no matter what, because it's always creating the circulation that you need to have in your brain and keeps your brain stimulated and healthy. And it's always indicated.
Yeah. Are there ways you can determine as a family member or a caregiver the difference between normal memory loss as we age and something like dementia or in the umbrella of Alzheimer's?
Yes, I think that people panic all the time because they think, oh my gosh, I can't remember. I have dementia. Like they think they have dementia. Like I have Alzheimer's. Oh my God, and it's really not the case. As people age, they have normal memory loss. So they might forget names all the time. They might forget faces. They might forget where they put their keys, or they put other things. These are normal. This is normal. There's also the tip of the tongue phenomenon. When you're trying to remember something, it's on the tip of your tongue. You can't get that word that you want. That's all normal part of aging. But the difference is, and how you could tell the difference is, when a person looks at a key and they're like, what is this? They can't remember what the item is. Or they get lost and disoriented in familiar places, or they're driving erratically. These are indications of dementia or Alzheimer's. So there's a very big difference between the two.
Right. What about short-term versus long-term memory? How is that impacted if somebody has a loved one, like you said, if they forgot their keys, but if somebody had a conversation and they ask you the same question a couple times, in the span of a couple of minutes, trying to understand to be able to look at our loved ones and understand what's happening.
Yes, so that is another indication, that something is wrong when the person keeps repeating the same question over and over again. When I worked in an adult daycare, I had a patient there who had Alzheimer's, and every 5 minutes she said, what time is lunch? What time is lunch? What time is lunch? Every 5 minutes. So what I did was I wrote on a piece of paper, lunch is at 1 o'clock. And I kept showing it to her, like I showed it to her, and then that helped her because then she didn't have to keep asking me over and over again. So that, sometimes you have to come up with creative ways of giving them the answer.
Is Alzheimer's inherited?
There is a gene that is inherited, and people can get tested for that gene.
What does testing look like? How does somebody actually?
It's a blood test. It's a blood test. Yeah.
It's a blood test.
It's a blood test.
So if they,
yeah.
Pardon?
So they check for that gene in the blood work.
Okay. How does somebody determine if they actually have Alzheimer's? How is it actually medically diagnosed?
So usually it's with an interview. The patient goes to the doctor, and the doctor will interview them, and they'll be able to tell by the responses, that there's dementia. And then if they want to be able to differentiate if it's Alzheimer's or what other, another dementia, then they do a PET scan, which is radioactive dye is injected into the arm, and then they do the scan of the brain, and then they see what areas are affected, and then they know if it's Alzheimer's or not. You can't always tell because there's multiple types of dementia, but it does differentiate between Alzheimer's and frontotemporal dementia. So that will show more, but it is a differential diagnosis.
Yeah. If somebody, once again, has this concern of a loved one, is the primary care physician the right individual, the right professional to go to make sure that all the tests are being run to determine if Alzheimer's is what their loved one has?
Well, people always start off going to their primary doctor, and the doctor will evaluate through blood work and everything, just to rule out other things, because sometimes a UTI can present as dementia. Sometimes a reaction to antibiotics can present as dementia. Sometimes depression can present as dementia, and it's called pseudo-dementia, when it comes, presents like dementia, but it really isn't. So people start out going to rule out, they go to the regular doctor, they rule out these other things. And then the next best step, if there is an indication of dementia, is to go to a neurologist and have a neurological evaluation. And that involves an interview with the patient as well as an interview with the family. And then the family can report what they see and what they observe, erratic driving, or, getting lost, disorientation, things like that.
What makes that neurological evaluation preferable to your primary care physician's evaluation?
So what makes it preferable is that the neurologist can then determine better the differential diagnosis, because the primary may say Alzheimer's because, that's what it seems to them, but it could be a different dementia. It could be Lewy body dementia, it could be vascular dementia, it could be frontotemporal dementia. It's difficult to differentiate. So when they do these scans, they could tell better, and then the neurologist can also, they're more trained to treat Alzheimer's and other dementia. So they know what to do in terms of the medications and combining the different medications and whatever else is needed to evaluate and treat.
So once a diagnosis for Alzheimer's, an individual has received a diagnosis, what are the most important things for a caregiver to do to effectively care for a person with, depending upon which stage they're in? I guess, you mentioned the 3 stages.
Right.
What are some things that the individual or the caregiver can do?
Oh, there's so many things. We wanna think quality of life. So we want to do everything we can to enhance and improve the quality of life of a patient who's suffering from Alzheimer's. And one of the things is to accommodate them as much as you can, in terms of like where they want to live, because a lot of times people think, they should be put in a facility, but it's not the case, because a lot of the time the patient can age at home and have an aide to help them. The only time when I would think that they should go into a facility is if the patient becomes volatile, violent, and that can happen, sometimes. So then I would say, okay, but as long as they can accommodate the person with where they want to live, that would be the first thing. The reason I'm saying this is because I have seen it myself with patients. I used to work in adult daycare, and I worked in the nursing home for a little bit, and they placed a man who had a little bit of memory loss in a locked unit with other patients that had severe dementia. And to me, that was heartbreaking because he didn't belong there. He was relatively normal. Okay, so whatever was going on for his memory loss, he shouldn't have been there. He should have either been home or in a regular assisted living facility with an aide, or, you know. So that's one thing. Then another time, one of my patients was put in assisted living and memory care, and that was because the family could not take care of her for a period of time. They had children and they had to take care of their kids, and so so during this period of time, COVID broke out.
Mm.
So the intensity of the isolation was devastating to this woman, and she was so miserable and depressed, and she felt so isolated. And she said she felt, because I would go visit her, and she said she felt like a prisoner, and a lot of people felt like prisoners because they couldn't go out. And it was really devastating. So I think, you know, just want to share those two stories to let you know how it affects people, their quality of life, and if they're in the wrong place when they have Alzheimer's. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing that can be done is when it gets to the moderate to severe stage, that a lot of times people lose their ability to speak, and they become aphasic. That's when they lose their ability to speak. So what I've seen in front of my own eyes is that they can come back with a speech therapist. If a speech therapist goes once or twice a week to work with them one-on-one for an hour at a time, they can regain their ability to speak. Now, people don't know this, and I'm sharing it to the world because it's so important that they know, because I have seen so many people sitting there and they cannot talk. They're like imprisoned in themselves. They can't express themselves because they're aphasic, but speech therapy works. The other thing is aide services are extremely important because the family can't always be with them to take care of them and help them. And it's not good for the family anyway to do it because it'll stress them out and they'll get burnt out. So aide services they need to have, and also they need physical therapy sometimes. And if they do, then they should get that. The family needs group therapy, like family therapy, psychotherapy, individual therapy. They need a lot of support. And what else? Let's see, what else? Medication is really, really, really important. There's a condition called sundowning that happens during all three stages. It could happen to an Alzheimer's patient. And that is when the sun goes down, like dinner time, the patient sometimes gets agitated, and they have irritability and agitation. They're miserable and they're making everybody else miserable. So what's recommended for that is, you know, besides going for a walk, is sometimes going for a walk really helps them a lot, and also lights, you know, like to make it like it's bright, you know, brighter in the house. But the medication is really important, like in terms of whether they're taking an antidepressant or they're taking, if the doctor approves CBD oil, that has been found to be effective in sundowning. So that is like an alternative to medication. But some people take, you know, like a little, like something to calm them down. I don't want to say a tranquilizer, but like maybe something like that to take off the edge of the agitation. There's a lot of different medicines, but CBD oil has been found, and that's an alternative, and it has been found to work if the doctor approves that. And also the anxiety and pain that they could be going through. Sometimes medical marijuana helps the patient if the doctor approves that as an alternative to medicine. It comes in tincture. It's like a little oil, and it's a little tincture that they put under the tongue, and it takes the edge off the anxiety and edge off the pain. And if the doctor allows that, then that's been found to be effective.
Yeah. I want to take a quick step back, and this is wonderful stuff. Is you had mentioned diet for prevention, right? So What about diet once there's a diagnosis? What does that look like?
So once there's a diagnosis, people switch to the keto diet. The keto diet has a higher emphasis on healthy fats, and that's supposed to help the cognition once there is a diagnosis and once they have a cognitive problem. It is a higher percentage of healthy fats, like gluten-free diet, and a moderate amount of protein. So it's still, they're still getting the protein they need, but it's moderate amount, and there's a bigger emphasis on healthy fats, and that's supposed to help the brain function better and create clarity in the brain, and it helps them do better cognitively and improve memory.
Yeah. So you were mentioning, I'm going to call them a care team, if you will, for purposes, you said a speech therapist or a physical therapist. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So if I have a family member with Alzheimer's and I just have a caregiver come in to assist, however that may look, who is the person, if my loved one is not in an assisted living or memory care, who's the one that directs this care team? Is it my primary physician? Is it this neurological doctor? Who is the one directing them for care if it's the stage 1 Alzheimer's?
So it's usually a family member that is directing the care.
Mm.
And the family member, they're a lot on their own to come up with these things, because the doctor will prescribe medicine, they'll evaluate, they observe, they take care of them, the physical, problems, and then you are the observer as a family to see what is going on with that, with the family member, what's happening. Are they losing their ability to speak? Are they having trouble walking? Like, what are the problems? So the family members are the ones that are calling in the helpers from the outside, whether it's a aide, a senior care aide, home care aide, or a speech therapist or a physical therapist or whatever. That's really it. People are on their own with these things.
So if somebody is at an assisted living facility or a memory care, do those, you are, if I remember correctly, with Senior Direct LLC, you also assist with placement and maintenance.
Yes.
So how can an individual feel comfortable? How can they take the steps to feel comfortable that their loved one is going to the right, once they move out of their home, whether it's an assisted living or memory care, how do they know that they're going to the place that's going to be best for their loved one with, whether it's, stage 2 or stage 3 Alzheimer's?
So that is on the family to do a lot of research. They have to do a lot of research. They have to go to the places. They have to meet with the administrators there. They have to see the rooms. They have to find out what food is being served. It's up to, they have to go and see for themselves and check it out. They have to be, on site and see.
Do the senior placement companies, do they do a good job, generally speaking, that to determine and help their loved one go to the places that are best for the type of Alzheimer's that they have?
So again, it really falls on the family to do the research and find out the right place for their loved one, because they know their loved one the best, and they know if their loved one doesn't care about fancy surroundings, or some people want a luxurious place, and it's all very specific to the person and the family. So they're going to go see, they have to go see what it looks like. They have to make sure it's a clean place, that it's a nice place, that they're going to be attentive and treat their family member kindly, and that they care. Not like in some facilities where, it could be a nursing home with an Alzheimer's unit, and they don't treat them the way they should sometimes. So I'm just saying, the family has to show up. The family has to show up. They have to do the research. They have to check it out. And once a person's in there, they have to show up again. and they have to, visit and make sure that their family member's being taken care of properly and with kindness.
Is there a time you had mentioned, I think in one of your examples, about an individual that was in an assisted living or memory care when they shouldn't have been? How does, if you've mentioned that a lot of individuals kind of have to, and the families have to do their research, how does somebody know when their loved one needs to be in a memory care facility?
Well, like I said, most of the time, a person with Alzheimer's can age at home with the family or on their own with aide services. That is usually what's preferred by the patient. They want to be with family or they want to be home. If that patient becomes violent, volatile, um, and it's not just once, if it's one time, then there's a reason for it. But if it starts being frequent, and that's the time when they really do need to go into a facility. But you want it to be, like I said, a facility where they're going to treat them with respect and kindness.
If somebody's watching this with a family member that just got diagnosed, how can they take the steps to make sure that their loved one, that how they can improve the quality of life as they go through this, I'm gonna call it a journey, if you will, with their health?
So it's through observation, and it's through, seeing where their family member is at. If they are just at the beginning, then the person is pretty okay. They have some memory loss. But as it goes through, like you said, as they go through the journey and there's further deterioration, then they should accommodate the needs of that person, whether it's, for speech therapy or, senior care, home care, aid services, whatever it is that they need.
What can you say to somebody that's watching this right now that has a loved one, an aging parent in one state, and they live in another state, and they're like, okay, I think my mother or my father may have the beginnings of some type of cognitive decline? What should be their first steps as far as educating themselves? How would you recommend they go about this process?
It's very difficult when you live out of state from your family who has Alzheimer's. It's very difficult. And what I've seen happen is there's two things that can happen. They either bring that family member to them and they live with them. And it could be one member of the family or another member of the family, whoever is able to take them in. Or there's three scenarios, or they can get, aid services to come in and take care of them at home with someone that's going to be in charge of their care. So, that's that. What was the other thing? To have them in a facility, to put them in a memory care facility. So, it's any of those three things would be the scenario.
Last thing I want to talk about is the finances or insurance part of this. Hopefully you can help with this. Is if they have this loved one, do we know the amount of testing or diagnosis? Is this all covered under insurance, or is it out of pocket? Do you want to know how this works for the loved one and maybe their families?
So it's a combination of both. I know that Medicare pays for the scan, the PET scan, because it's proven to be able to differentiate between Alzheimer's and frontotemporal dementia. So I know that's covered. A lot of times people opt to go on Medicaid because then they can go into a facility that accepts Medicaid, and then they're not running out of money after a certain amount of time, because it's a fortune to go into these places. So if they have the finances, then then they could just pay out of pocket. a lot of doctors accept Medicare, so that helps. Yeah, it's a combination of the two. It's either Medicare or out of pocket or Medicaid.
Very good.
Long-term care insurance will pay for aide services.
Okay. Very good. And real quick, so home health aides that come in, what is the difference, real quick, as far as what's covered and is it medical is covered by insurance, non-medical is paid out of pocket? Is that the rule of thumb?
I would say so. The long-term care pays for the senior care. Sometimes they require HHA or CNA certification, and sometimes they don't, depending on the policy. They can find me by calling 845-393-4613 or emailing me at Caren with a C, Caren, SENIORDIRECT, Caren Senior Direct @gmail.com.
Well, thank you again, Caren, for your time today. As far as Knowledgeable Agent, you can find us on our website, knowledgeableagent.com. You can find all of our archive and upcoming webinars. Go to YouTube. We encourage you to subscribe. We do update a couple times per month. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Apple, Tunes, Spotify, etc. Until next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar. This is Knowledgeable Agent.